I saw a clip. I don't know if it was from Instagram or TikTok. I don't recall, but it was a scenario where the young lady answered her door and it was her nosy neighbor knocking on her door. And she opened up the door and it was like, I don't know, like a middle-aged woman who asked her a question. And the lady who opened her door, she did answer the woman, but the way she answered her was interesting. And I thought about that brief conversation, and it made me wonder how I feel about the word homosexual. But in her skit, when she opened the door, the middle aged woman asked her, "Are you a homosexual?" And the lady that answered the door said, "What?" And she repeated herself, the nosy neighbor, "Are you a homosexual?" And so the young lady responded, she says, "What is a homosexual?" And that was the end of the skit. And it made me wonder a couple of things. I thought about how that scenario is like often real life that you experience when you identify as lesbian or gay or same sex attracted. People tend to be very intrusive about your sexual orientation when they don't think that you are heterosexual, or they question your sexuality. And then, secondly, it made me wonder, how do I feel about the word homosexual? And what does homosexual mean to me? And I decided to discuss that here in this video. And the title of this video is Homosexual. My name is Giselle Wallace, lesbian life coach and author. And I identify as a homosexual. I am a lesbian. And in the little skit, the nosy middle-aged woman had no shame. She was very bold and invasive with her question, because how do you go to someone's house and just knock on their door and ask them blatantly, "Are you a homosexual?" But this scenario actually plays out very often in real life. I've actually experienced this in my own life. And regarding the young lady that opened the door, and her answer was, "What is a homosexual?" And I thought her response was interesting because, for one, it was up to her whether or not she wanted to answer the woman. And she did answer, but she probably answered her in a way that the middle aged woman did not expect. And also, it was really none of her business. And it was very rude and intrusive to come to someone else's house whom you probably don't even know and just ask them such a personal question. And I always say that nobody really needs to know your sexual orientation unless you are in a relationship with that person to where you feel that you can share that part of you. And being in a relationship could be someone who you are in related to. It could be a friend, it could be a close confidant. It could be someone who you are romantically and sexually involved with. At that point, you probably feel comfortable enough to share your sexual orientation with a person. But why is sharing our sexual orientation with someone such a personal matter? And why are people hesitant or uncertain about revealing their sexual orientation? More than likely, it's because their sexual orientation is homosexual. Because people tend to use the word homosexual as an insult. They like to make a person feel like an outcast when they use the word homosexual. They like to berate a person when they use the word homosexual. They like to demean a person. They like to make a person feel inferior. They like to make a person feel like something is not right if they are a homosexual. And you can use the word homosexual to define a person's sexual orientation, because a homosexual is a male or a female person who is attracted to the same sex romantically and or sexually. And then there's other words to define the specific sex or gender of a person who is homosexual. You can use the word gay. Gay is usually referred to a male homosexual, and lesbian is referred to a female homosexual. And people used to use the word lesbian in a very derogative manner, insulting manner. Many years ago, using the word lesbian was frowned upon. And it took me many years for me to define myself as a lesbian, to use the word lesbian, because it was used against me when I was growing up. And it inspired me once I began to embrace the word lesbian. I began to say the word lesbian, and I like the way it rolls off my tongue. I like the way it made me feel. And I even wrote my book celebrating the word lesbian. She a Lesbian, Finding My Identity in Genesis is my debut book. And I find freedom in the word lesbian because people used to use it to deter me from being who I am, which is very silly and unreasonable, because you can't make a person stop being attracted to who they're attracted to. You can't force a person to stop loving who they love. Nobody has that right or power to take who you are away from you. But yet people try to every day. And they'll use who you are. They will use words that define and describe who you are to bash you and to insult you and to humiliate you and to interrogate you. Like the woman who knocked on the young lady's door. Are you a homosexual? If you are a heterosexual, you more than likely call yourself straight, or you'll just profess that you like the opposite sex. But you rarely will expect someone just to come up to you randomly and ask you, are you a heterosexual? A very odd way to come at a person, very intrusive. But yet heterosexual people do this without thinking to homosexual people all the time. I identify as a homosexual. I'm not ashamed of being a homosexual. I know that I am a homosexual. And I think about if I was in that position of being the young lady who opened the door to the nosy neighbor, and the middle-aged nosy woman asked me, are you a homosexual? I often wonder what my response would have been. More than likely, I would have asked her, do you know my name? Because although we know our sexual orientation, and there are words to describe and define our sexual orientation, we have a name. And everybody should address you by your name, not by your sexual orientation. They don't have that type of connection with you for you to be able to even reveal that to them, unless you're sleeping with them or you trust them dearly to confide in them about your sexual orientation. Address me by my name. My name is Giselle. And then maybe the next question you can ask me is, how are you doing? That's how you start a conversation. That can be the beginning of making a new friend. Let's be careful how we approach people. Let's be careful about judging people. And let's consider how we would want to be treated. And then things will make more sense in life and people will get along a lot better. Yes, I am a homosexual, but really it's none of your business. But since you made it your business, I will let you know that who I am is me. And I love myself. Have a good day. My name is Giselle Wallace, lesbian life coach and author. Thank you for listening.